The rain fell softly over the city like a veil that covered everything in silence. The lights reflected in the puddles like golden fragments amid the cold asphalt. It was late afternoon in Abidjan, and the lobby of the most luxurious hotel in the region was overflowing with sophistication, polished marble, impeccably suited staff, calculated glances. The clients there didn't come just for comfort. They came to be seen, to be recognized. It was into this setting that he entered. No security, no entourage. He wore only a simple dark coat, his face partially covered by the hood. His steps were silent but firm, as if he knew exactly where he was going. The receptionist, busy serving a European couple, didn't even look up when he approached. To everyone else, he was just another ordinary African man, maybe a driver, maybe a messenger. There was something in the man's eyes, however, a calm look that carried the weight of unseen battles. His silence wasn't shy. It was calculated. His posture was erect, his breathing slow, his eyes alert. He didn't seem out of place in that luxurious environment, but he didn't seem impressed either. It was as if he knew that this place, despite its opulence, was just one of many. The receptionist, impatient, finally addressed him with a formal but icy smile. "Are you lost? Do you need help with a delivery?" Her voice was sweet, but poisoned with prejudice. He responded with a calm nod, taking a leisurely document out of his pocket. Still, no one there had any idea that the man before them was one of the most symbolic leaders of the new Africa, a symbol of resistance, courage, and humility. The document was still in the receptionist's hand when the hotel manager approached. With long strides and an impatient expression, he was a middle-aged European man with a well-tailored suit, his gaze as cold as the marble on the floor. He assessed Ibrahim with a single glance, the kind that tries to measure someone's dignity by their clothes, their skin, the way they enter a space reserved for the elite. A look that carries centuries of conditioning. "What's the problem? Here?" the manager asked in a harsh tone, almost as if he were reprimanding an employee. The receptionist, embarrassed, explained that the man wanted to stay, but that his name was not on the VIP reservation list. The manager did not bother to confirm the document. He just pushed it back on the counter. "This is not the kind of hotel where you enter without being invited. You should look for something more suitable." There was an awkward silence after this sentence, not because of the impact of those words, but because of the way Ibrahim reacted. He just observed, calm. No outburst of anger, no attempt to justify himself. His silence hurt more than any answer. That serenity he carried seemed out of place in that tense environment, as if he had been through this before and survived. Clients nearby glanced sideways, some curious, others uncomfortable. It was a subtle but cruel spectacle. A black man being disowned in the lobby of a hotel that prided itself on serving kings, politicians, and businessmen, as long as they came from the right place with the right appearance. The manager, satisfied that he had solved the problem, turned around and disappeared into the hallways, unaware that he had just humiliated none other than the interim president of Burkina Faso. Minutes passed. The lobby returned to its usual rhythm, but something hovered in the air, like electricity before a storm. Ibrahim remained standing near the entrance, observing the movement around him with the patience of someone who has seen the weather turn against greater enemies. His calm was disconcerting. Some employees whispered among themselves, not understanding why he was still there. Then a different sound crossed the room, the deep roar of approaching engines. 3 armored SUVs, black as night, stopped right in front of the main entrance. From inside, men in uniforms, soldiers from the armed forces of Burkina Faso, stepped out. Their posture was clear, total protection, but without fuss. Tension filled the eyes of those around them. Who were they expecting? A head of state? A diplomat? The manager reappeared, confused, watching the soldiers enter firmly but without violence. One of them approached Ibrahim and gave a brief, formal salute. "We are ready, Mr. President." The words cut through the air like a sharp blade. All eyes turned to him. The receptionist froze. The manager turned pale. Customers who had previously looked on with indifference now made room as if they were in the presence of royalty. The silence that followed was deafening. The truth had come, and with it, the weight of shame. The man they had tried to humiliate was, in fact, a military and political leader admired throughout the continent, a symbol of the fight against neocolonialism, and a staunch defender of African sovereignty. Not a word was spoken by him. There was no need. His name now echoed through the hotel corridors with more force than any speech. The manager stood still, his eyes fixed on Ibrahim as if he could not process what he had just heard. The arrogance had evaporated from his face, replaced by an almost childish embarrassment. He tried to give a diplomatic smile, but the attempt died halfway. The receptionist, his hands trembling, searched for something to say, but no words seemed sufficient given the magnitude of the mistake. Some employees backed away discreetly, trying to get out of the way, as if simply moving away could erase what they had witnessed. Others stood petrified, their faces red, staring at the floor as if they recognized that they had just participated in something that would be remembered for a long time, not as a simple incident, but as a lesson. The customers, previously indifferent, now whispered and filmed discreetly, capturing the moment when prejudice was exposed for all to see. The atmosphere had changed completely. The hotel, once a symbol of exclusivity, now seemed small in the face of the dignity of that man. It was not the presence of the soldiers that commanded respect, but the way Ibrahim remained calm, without raising his voice, without looking down on anyone. It was the silent grandeur that was more disturbing than any confrontation. The manager took 2 steps forward, trying to redeem himself. "Mr. President, forgive me. There has been a mistake." But before he could continue, Ibrahim fixed him with a steady, calm gaze. It was not a look of hatred, but of conscience. A look that said, "You do not respect me for who I am, but for who I represent, and that says more about you than it does about me." And then he turned away, leaving behind a trail of lessons that not even 1,000 hotel management degrees could teach. As the group of soldiers positioned themselves around him, Ibrahim walked toward the exit. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. The lesson had already been taught, not with shouting, not with humiliation, but with presence. His true strength lay in his posture, in the unshakable calm of someone who doesn't need to assert himself to be respected. It was as if he was saying with the simple gesture of walking, "I know who I am, and that's enough." The manager stood there still, with his hands still extended in the air, waiting for an answer that never came, because there was nothing to say. Apologizing at that moment wasn't enough. It was too late. The hotel, which had always prided itself on welcoming big names, had just learned that greatness is not measured by expensive suits, VIP reservations, or famous surnames. Greatness is what remains when the title disappears. One of the soldiers approached the receptionist and, with a slight smile, commented in a respectful tone, "You stopped the president, but he never had to step over anyone to prove he was a leader." The phrase hung in the air like a moral echo. It was not a threat. It was an uncomfortable truth, and a liberating one for those who had the courage to learn it. In the car, already moving, Ibrahim took off his hood and looked out the window. The city was still alive, indifferent to what had happened. But there, in that small piece of the world, something had changed. Dignity had spoken louder than pride, and in that final silence, it seemed as if all of Africa was whispering with him, "Our greatness does not need to shout, it just walks." As the car drives through the wet streets of the city, the imaginary camera takes us far away from that hotel, to long before fame, before the title of president. We see bare feet stepping on the red earth, children running between crops, an elderly woman looking at the horizon with eyes of ancient wisdom. And in the midst of all this, a young man named Ibrahim, learning to carry water, to listen before speaking, to respect before commanding. Time passes, but the essence remains. We see quick scenes like broken memories. A young man in uniform, silent in the middle of the forest, watching the movement of troops. Later he shares the little he has with younger soldiers, listening to the people, always with attentive eyes and an open heart. It was there that the leader was forged, not in palaces, but in the streets, in the villages, in the trenches of humility. These images have no sound. Only soft, ancestral music accompanies the narrative, as if the spirits of the past told the story together with the land. Because Ibrahim Traoré was not formed on luxurious benches, but on the benches of daily struggle. He did not memorize speeches. He lived the words. Every gesture of his today is an echo of something much greater than himself. It is a reflection. We then return to the present, to the inside of the car. He is still observing the world outside, but now we understand better what lies behind that calm gaze. It is the gaze of someone who has seen pain, but has chosen dignity. Someone who has known humiliation, but has decided to walk with his head held high. Someone who, even when everyone tries to belittle him, continues to be great, because he is a son of the earth, and the earth never bows. The news did not take long to spread. Within minutes, short videos recorded on cell phones in the hotel lobby began to circulate on social media. It was not the kind of cheap viral. It was something different. There was indignation, but there was also pride. They tried to humiliate him, and he responded with silence, read one caption. In markets, barbershops, universities and squares, the story spread like wildfire. In Ouagadougou, a woman held her phone with tears in her eyes. "That is why he is our president," said the woman, with a colorful headscarf on her head and calloused hands. "Because he represents us even when the world tries to erase us." A young man wearing headphones watched the video and smiled. They wanted him to beg. He just stood up. That's how you win. This story wasn't about a mistake in a hotel. It was about something bigger. It was about all the times Africans were looked down upon, even when they carried the souls of giants. It was about those whose names were never announced, but who carry the continent on their backs. That day, Ibrahim didn't just answer for himself. He answered for all those who have ever been treated as invisible, and by doing so without raising his voice, he shouted to the entire world. An ancient, silent and profound cry, "We are waking up, and our silence is stronger than your words." As night fell over the city, a voiceover brought the story to a close. It was not Ibrahim's voice, but that of a narrator who seemed to come from the heart of Africa, slow, grave, ancient. They judged him by his appearance, they measured his importance by his silence. But they forgot that there are men who do not need to shout to be heard. They forgot that there are leaders who carry a nation in their gaze. The final images showed Ibrahim Traoré walking down a dirt road, this time without soldiers, without cars, just him among the people. Children ran around him, women greeted him with reverence, and young men looked at him with respect. It was not a rehearsed scene, it was real, because his strength does not come from escort. It comes from connection. It comes from truth. The narration continued. True power does not dress in luxury. It dresses in courage. It dresses in history. Ibrahim does not seek revenge because he does not need to. He is living proof that the future of Africa will not be written in anger, but in conscience. It will not be built on arrogance, but on dignity. And before the screen goes dark, the last sentence appears in firm letters against the background of an African savanna at dawn. They disrespected him, without knowing that he was the rebirth